I think I speak for all of us when I say after like 3 seasons, it feels so good to take this, bring it down here, and say goodbye, Lightning Spear. Hello then, my fellow sorcerers, and I am so happy to finally be saying that. Welcome then to Season 9, and honestly, it's growing on me a lot. I will completely admit, when it first kinda started, I wasn't super feeling the escalating nightmares and the Horadric strongrooms, but once you kinda get into torment and you get astaroth at the end, there's a lot of loot, it feels kinda good, and it's refreshing to not be doing a Helltide, but this time it's orange. And it's refreshing to not just be spamming Helltides, but this time they're purple. So, yeah, I am kind of digging it. But I think the main reason, I'll be honest, I am, is because Hydra. And not just Hydra, but being free of Lightning Spear. I have been playing Sorceress since before Diablo 4 even came out in the initial tests, and doing builds for you guys for 2 years now. And there have been ups, and there have been downs, and there have been some long periods of nothing good happening. But now, this is one of the most refreshing experiences to have the pleasure of playing, and it doesn't hurt that it's obscenely powerful. So I am so hyped to bring you then our best Season 9 Sorcerer build, at least until you get like perfect gear and mythic uniques, when you can kind of start to do some other versions and tweaks, but in general, this is it, and it's monstrous. Seriously, I got into Torment 4 and established on Torment 4 before I even hit Paragon 100, which is hilarious. I don't even have 5 glyphs equipped. I don't even have 2 legendary Paragon nodes that I will have when I have more points. My glyphs that I do have equipped are nowhere near becoming legendary for that big boost. My gear isn't fully upgraded, masterworked. The affixes aren't ideal. Not even all of my gear is ancestral. It just doesn't matter. It's just this powerful, and you are going to feel it. A little bit later on, when I got a bit more established, this is a tier 60, and as you can see, yeah, fairly damn comfortable. Obviously, it's not like it's breaking any ultra speed records, but it certainly is not slow, given again the state of my character. The ceiling is so much higher, and that is really exciting. As is the fact that I am about to say something that I never thought I would say on a sorcerer build, but the bossing is actually really good. Better than the mobbing, at least at this stage, which is kinda crazy, all things considered. I'm not quite at the point where I can obliterate tier 4 upper ladder bosses, but this is the tier 3 Belial with my current state of gear. Certainly not too shabby, and I think most importantly, I'm already comfortably going through Torment 4 escalations, doing the strongrooms, getting the maximum rewards, and fairly AFKly beating Astaroth for that juicy pinata of loot that he is. All in all then, this is one of the most fun and powerful sorcerer builds we've got to play with in a while, and it's doing some really neat things with some really neat gear, using some really neat techs. So, without further ado then, let's explain everything. Beginning then with the ever-reliable skill tree scroll from the bottom to the top while I say the sentence that we're starting with the skill tree. Oh, 2 years. It's 2 years of 2 years of saying that. 2 points into anything. Firebolt I always choose because it feels like home. God, remember the Firebolt enchant days? It's crazy. In any case, we then move on to your cause, where we're going to fill out elemental dominance as we turn Hydra into a core skill, and then we want 9 extra mana because every single point of mana is more damage on our Hydra, so this is very nice. We also grab a single rank of Ice Shards, so, you know, we can get to enhanced ice shards. The reason we want that is so it can ricochet, which will increase the rate at which we can stack our helmet. And if the whole sort of ice shard thing initially right now is seeming a bit weird, don't worry, I will explain it. It's really quite powerful and uniquely applicable to Hydra, given how Hydra plays, where you can't really do anything other than watch your Hydras. In any case, we then move on to our defensives, where we grab Flame Shield, so we can, you know, cast it, our beautiful emergency button, teleport, our beautiful mobility button, into the movement speed and the damage reduction. We grab ourselves ice armor and enhanced armor, and then we want shimmering. Given that Hydra uses our entire pool of mana when we cast it, and we're going to have easily over 200 mana, that means a Hydra cast is just instantly 4 seconds off your ice armor, so needless to say, your uptime and therefore tankiness in this is quite silly. Then we go over to our conjurations, where we grab Familiar and Enhanced Familiar into Invoked. This is going to be our first enchantment slot. We want to be summoning them all the time to keep up that extra 10% multiplicative fire damage, but also for our enchantment master board, as it does have the fire tag. Then we fill out the star of the show, Hydra, to your full 5 ranks, and take it up to Enhanced and then Roaring, as this will be a burn build primarily. You can do things with Invoked for a just raw impact crit damage Hydra, but it's a lot more gear intensive and arguably not even better. In any case, so we then grab Ice Blades, Enhanced, and this time Invoked. We don't need the help of the cooldown reduction, and Invoked is more attack speed for us, which is more attack speed for Hydra, which is a lot more DPS gain overall. Then we get Align the Elements into Protection for the constant barrierage, fill out your Primordial Binding. This is obviously huge for our Hydra, and then Mana Shield for that DR, and boy are we spending mana. Then we head over to your Masteries, where we get Inner Flames for that free 18% multiplicative damage. Grab yourself a Firewall into Enhanced Firewall, as we will be stacking Lucky Hit to a reasonable level for a few other reasons, but one of the reasons initially is because Firewall will be the second enchantment slot for that 25% multiplicative burn damage increased once it gets summoned. Over to our ultimates, where we fill out Elemental Synergies, which is quite a nice big damage bump here, and then the free cooldown reduction, the triple Permafrost, Icy Touch, and Hoarfrost combination, which is going to give us a nice big damage increase, especially as we are casting Ice Shards as well, so that works out, but Ice Blades is normally enough, and hey, these two are free anyway. In any case, we then go over here, grab Fiery Surge, so we can then get Endless Pyre for the extra burn, and Soulfire for that extra damage. Lastly, we round things out with, you guessed it, Combustion for that 100x damage, which is obviously massive. This is where we end up then. So before we go over gear choices and start explaining that, a few of you might have a moment of, why are we ice sharding? This doesn't do anything for us, right? It does kind of no damage compared to our massive Hydras. Well, let's get into that. So this build will be using the Hail of Verglass, the new Ice Shard unique from last season, which is nice because it didn't really get to shine last season, and now it's powering up our Hydra, so this build really is a supreme combination of our last two new uniques, which I find immensely satisfying. In any case, what this does then is, apart from give 3 really useful affixes, percent intelligence is great, attack speed is great, cooldown reduction is great, the ranks to Ice Shards don't matter, but that unique effect. Casting Ice Shards spread out, and you deal increased damage each time Ice Shards damages an enemy. And note then that it's not increased Ice Shards damage, it's just increased damage. So at max, this is a 100% multiplicative damage increase from casting Ice Shards that affects every bit of damage you do, i.e. Hydra. So we can use Ice Shards to power up Hydra immensely, and I do mean immensely. It's more damage than Air of Perdition, it's more damage than a Godslayer, it's more damage than any other helmet you could put on. So the reason this works here then, because you might say, well, why don't we do that with every other build? Well, if you're playing like Meteor or Chain Lightning, you want to be casting meteor and chain lightning. You can't, like, cast a bunch of ice shards, then do a meteor. The timing will make that a loss overall compared to, you know, just putting on Air of Perdition, Mythic Unique. Whereas with Hydra, well, we can only have 2 Hydras. They last a while. While they're doing their thing, firing, we're sort of just stood here, right? We're going to be using our Ice Blades on cooldown, we'll be teleporting around, using our barriers to stay alive, but mostly we're just kind of watching our Hydras do what they do. So we need to come up with something that we can spend this time doing to help the build. So enter Ice Shards with the Hail of Verglass combo. We summon our 2 Hydras, and then we just stand there spamming Ice Shards, which is now amping up their damage by that 100x multiplier. And lo and behold, we have this beautiful hybrid that works just so well. And that then leads into the actual playstyle. Of course, we have Ophidian Iris, the new unique, and buffed and changed and better since the PTR, and this just means that any heads above 3 give the Hydra a big damage increase, as well as making it a core skill, which is great. We get those extra heads from something like this. The casted Hydras have +6 heads, which is obviously a colossal amount of damage given Ophidian Iris here. So what we do then to play it is we need to make sure we are on full mana, and the reason for that is the other chief aspect here is Serpentine. Your Hydras deal up to 3% multiplicative more damage per mana you had when summoned, but casting Hydra consumes all your mana. So if I've got 181 mana here, that's 181 times that 3% damage multiplier when I cast the Hydra. That's a lot of damage. It really is. Which means you never want to ideally cast Hydra unless this lovely little blue orb is full. So essentially, if you're engaging something, you plop down a Hydra, you start doing your Ice Shards, you're using your other skills, and then you will jump back up to full mana, then you can do your other Hydra. And you can keep track of how many Hydras you've got out by the number on the actual Hydra button, and that'll make things quite easy. When you're actually, you know, facing hordes of enemies because of how we've built the build, you're going to get back to full mana pretty damn quickly, like so, and you're always going to be able to have out 2 full mana casted Hydras for maximum DPS, and that's kind of your rotation. You go through the dungeon, teleporting forward as needed, summon your Ice Blades on cooldown, Flame Shield as needed to not die, and then Ice Armor as needed to not die. Teleport also gives us our extra stack of Tal Rashes and Elementalist Glyph, and then the rest of the time, you're just casting Ice Shards and summoning 2 Hydras on full mana. You don't need to stand there just blasting the Ice Shards, you can sort of just do this. You don't need to have too crazy investment. This kind of pace will keep the buff at maximum, and then you just move on. Hopefully that all makes sense, and it's quite a lovely, ingenious little loop of offensive prowess, which then takes us into your gear. We want a 2-handed staff, and you want to have Serpentine on it to double that immense value from having loads of mana. And then this is obviously going to give you your damage over time, and this does a lot of damage over time, so that's really nice as a double up too. And because we don't actually need to cast that many Ice Shards to maintain the buff, you see it just, there we are, we've reached the maximum stacks there, and we're just maintaining them quite nicely. If you watch the attack power going up and down, well, we don't need a crazy amount of attack speed for that, though extra attack speed does obviously help the Hydras. In any case, staff with your Serpentine on it. Then you want 1 normal ring with Battlecasters on. This gives us an extra up to 10 ranks of Hydra, which is a huge amount of damage, and that's why we have some lucky hit involved here, and why extra lucky hit is good to get this going as much as possible. After that, we have a regular pair of boots with Fortune for that extra lucky hit while we have a barrier, which is all the time, to stack this up more. It's also lucky hit to trigger the Restore Primary Resource, as that roll on the staff is why we immediately fill our mana back up to 200 plus for another max mana Hydra. It's very key to the operation. In any case, so we then have gloves with Firestarter for that 30% multiplicative more fire damage, which is really nice across the board here. And then lastly, you want concentration on your chest for that permanent damage reduction, as we are permanently summoning conjurations. Uniques-wise then, we want the ever-reliable Talrashes. I've still not got a good ancestral one for its huge damage increase. We want the thing that makes it work in Ophidian Iris, and then we want the other thing that makes this work in Hail of Verglass. Lastly, we want the fourth thing that makes this work, or third, Rashes is just a big damage increase, but the trifecta of Iris, Verglass, and then here, Axial Conduit. This one might raise another eyebrow, but after everything I've explained, maybe not. It's that resource generation and maximum affix, specifically the maximum. The damage reduction is nice, but the entire rest of the item is useless. We just want the damage reduction and chiefly that maximum resource. Because this by itself, with the GA, I've only hit it once on masterworking, is why we sit at 181 mana, which is great for powering up those Hydras. So that's ideally what you want, but you can still play this build without it. Once you've got Ophidian Iris, you can essentially just play this build, swap to Ice Shards once you've got Verglass, and then it just gets way stronger with Conduit. So, when we are looking at affixes then, on your staff, you want Intelligence, Max Life, and Lucky Hit chance to restore primary resource. On your ring, you want Intelligence, Attack Speed, and then Max Life or a damaging affix like damage over time or something along those lines. Then on your gloves, you ideally want Intelligence, Attack Speed, and ranks to core skills. Then on your chest, you want Intelligence, Max Life, and Armor. Then, finally, on your boots, you want Intelligence, Max Life, and Armor. So, let me kind of explain a little bit. Of course, in Torment 4, we need our Armor Cap. I mean, you always need your Armor Cap, but getting it in Torment 4 is particularly challenging, especially given we get no armor from the actual conduit we have to wear. So, we're in a little bit of a tricky position. So, essentially, what you ideally want is a armor roll on your boots. This 6 mana per second should be armor, and then an armor roll on your chest. That way you don't need to have one on gloves like I do, and it can be that more valuable attack speed instead. That's kind of the way to go. And remember, you can always just bust out your Song of the Mountain, use this permanently, you can make infinite of them, and that gives you a huge armor jump too if you want to bridge the gap artificially. So that's what's going on there, and of course always make sure that you've got your caps when it comes to your resistances. I'm still a little bit off, again, only 114 Paragon points, and I don't even have my third Horadric Jewel for the extra 6% all resist that gives. My Talrashes is an ancestral, which is a huge amount more all resist. It's just, I'm doing my best as fast as I can for you guys in this season. In any case, that's your affixes. When it comes to your gems and your runes, you want damage over time in your weapon, and you want intelligence in your 1 free slot of armor, and then we have ourselves the following. You want Summon a Spirit Wolf Companion. Now, you don't technically want this to be Cast Evade to do it, that's just the best that I've got. You want it something like Cast a Core Skill, or Store Up Offering, and then when you cast a skill it gets used, or 50 Offering when you use a cooldown, a better generator, but the reason we want the Spirit Wolf Companion is they count as your summons, so we get stacks of our lovely primordial binding for this wolf existing, which is really good damage. Your other one then, you want cast 5 skills, then become exhausted, and then gain +1 to all skills for 10 seconds. This will just give you a permanent +3 to Hydra, which is really nice. So, Horadricness then. For your Horadric jewels, you want the following. After you deal damage to an enemy, they take 0.33% multiplicative more forever, over and over and over. This is incredible ramping and really potent for us. Then you want, after you injure a kill enemy, your summons are empowered. Hydra is of course a summon, and dealing 50% multiplicative more damage, and getting larger after they're already getting larger, which is just great because we get Titanic Hydras. But this is huge for mobbing and any bosses that summon adds. Then your third one, which I currently don't have, you want increased elemental damage you deal by that 20% at the cost of taking more. That's just all round great for everything Sorcerer wants to be doing. Then the actual spellcraft itself, you want to have the Astral Pillar. The main reason for it is it's got a low cooldown, so we can activate our arcana fairly frequently, but the actual vulnerable and taunt is really great. It's great for your survivability, it's great to keep up vulnerable, an extra source of it is always nice, and it groups enemies up for you for Hydra to do its thing on top of the Hydra. You plonk it down, you've got that beam, enemies all run in and stack on the Hydra. Yeah, it just works really, really well. Then, of course, this is a fire build and a burning build, so we want our Smoldering Ember Catalyst, and this, while equipped, your fire damage bonus is equal to that of your highest damage type bonus, is really, really potent, and lets us do some silly things when it comes to pumping damage. Then, for your 3 Arcana, you want Tranquil Stone, so we have essentially permanent unstoppable, can stop any silly deaths from happening, and then after that, it's kind of dealer's choice. If you're pushing pits, something like Bloody Charm is great to just execute injured enemies that still have a lot of health left in high pits. If you want to speed farm, then you want something like Floaty Bubble, which will turn you placing your Hydra into a teleport, which is really, really nice. There's not actually a huge amount of like mandatory this is it critical choices here. I've just sort of put in what I have's best because I've not gotten a lot actually drop for me. This one, destroying enemy barriers, is really nice. You do get some big chunky barriers. Then something like Fractured Core isn't bad. Resistance auras can be really annoying, especially when you're still gearing up and you're not absolutely dominating everything, just disabling that and blowing up the pack. Lucky hit chance on the Catalyst doubled for more ranks of Hydra, and all of our lucky hit effects isn't the worst, but if I absolutely had to commit, I would go with Tranquil Stone, your Floaty Bubble for the speed, and then if pushing pits, Bloody Charm, and if not pushing pits, your Potent Alloy to destroy barriers. Now that we've got all the main building blocks out the way, just a quick massive tip that you kind of really want to pay attention to. Normally I don't go into consumables too much because all the time it's sort of whatever, but sometimes a build really benefits, and sometimes a build like this really benefits. You want to make sure you always have on an Elixir of Resourcefulness. That extra 25 maximum resource, and it's not just going to be 25, will take us from this 181 all the way to 223. That's an over 40 gain, which is another 40 points to go into Serpentine, which is obviously colossal amounts of DPS. So yeah, make sure you've got a resource potion on when using this build. For tempering on your staff, you want your Hydras have extra heads. This is imperative. And then you want fire damage. On your ring, you want fire damage. And then some form of resource help. This lucky hit extra chance to restore resource, or just pure resource generation is going to do you well. Then you want on your gloves fire damage, and then lucky hit chance is nice for the extra ranks of Hydra with battlecasters. But that second slot really is up to you. There's nothing critical there. On your chest, you want % total armor, and I did want to get either familiar or Hydra lucky hit chance, but I ran out of rolls and ended up with lightning spear. So I guess I'm not quite free of lightning spear yet. Then, lastly, on your boots, you want evade, cooldown reduction, and then what I was trying to get on my chest, something like familiar or Hydra lucky hit chance. As for masterworking, well, you want to hit primordial binding on your amulet. You want that cooldown reduction on Tal Rashes. You want to hit fire damage or attack speed on the ring. You want to triple hit Hydras have heads. Like, this is huge for you. You really want to try and make that happen. On your boots, your evade cooldown reduction is a good one. On your legs, the resource generation and maximum is everything. Triple hit that if you can. On here, the ranks to core skills are where it's at. On your chest, intelligence will do you well. And then lastly, on the helm, either intelligence or attack speed, and you will be fine. For your mercenaries and your reinforcement, you want Vajana for that 10% attack speed when she pops up. Then for your main, you either want Rahir if you are still just pushing torment tiers and you don't have enough all resist yet. This extra 15% helps massively, and the extra tankiness he provides is really, really good too. And hey, he still does help with your damage a lot. But once you're firmly established and you're not worried about dying, then you want to swap to Subo, and you want to get Scorched Earth for that 30% multiplicative increase to damage over time. After that, it's mostly, well, dealer's choice, but I do like the extra lucky hit chance to stack those ranks of Hydra. All that leaves then is Paragon, and look, I only have 142 points to show you, but I'll let you know what I will be getting after that. With Monster Hunter Wilds getting an update at the same time as the Diablo season, I'm a little bit behind where I'd usually like to be, but I hope that is understood. In any case, follow me point for point. We start on our starting board. Jogging, I know. Head up to grab your resilience, and then up round through Elementalist. Obviously, if you have loads of points, like usual, you'll be grabbing all your little extra bits around the place, which is what you want to do once you've got everything I'm going to go over. Anyway, up through Elementalist to the glyph slot, where we slot and activate Elementalist. Grabbing Studied, and then up through Elemental Balance into our first board, which is going to be your Enchantment Master board. You want to have it so it's in the bottom right, like so, and initially head up to it and grab it. It's a big damage increase. Then we want to head left, make sure to get Blessing at 2, as it's really nice to have, especially early on when you're struggling with all resist. Up and past Ruinous, which we grab, and then over to the glyph in a straight shot, which is going to be your Pyromaniac. Activate it with the extra willpower. Obviously, if your glyph is legendary and it's got a bigger radius, you can do this much more efficiently, grabbing this willpower down here, for example, and, well, keep that in mind. This one here, too. In any case, we then want to head back to this fork, up to Suffused Resilience, grabbing it, and then heading to our next board, which is going to be your Fundamental Release. Place it like so, with the glyph very close to the gate, head up and round, grabbing Elemental Balance, and then down here in order to get Torch in the glyph slot. Activate it up with enough willpower, and then down to Lightning Cutter as we head right in order to grab Fundamental Release itself. Then, for now, you want to go down here, getting Overdrive, and then into the next board, which is finally going to be your Burning Instinct for that huge increase to your burning damage. While this is a larger increase, the actual rare nodes with their stat bonuses are more useful on this board, so we want them to be easier to activate. In any case, Legendary Node top right, we initially want to go straight over to it via Keeper of Flames, and then we will start heading to the glyph slot, which is where I am up to. So you would go through all of the burning damage, and then down to the glyph where we would slot and activate Tactician, grabbing yourself Cinders and Explosive 2. Then we want to head down to the next board, where you'd want to get Elemental Summoner, and that will give you that extra big increase to your Hydra damage, which is of course everything we care about. And in there you would slot and activate Flame Theater after grabbing the legendary node. Then past that, the extra points, as I say, just go into all the little bonuses around the place that are still grabbable. Hopefully that makes sense. And there it is, guys! The season of Hydra is here. Massive, powerful, fun, and most importantly, different from everything we've known to. My heart goes out to Spiritborns and their constant quill volleys. In any case, like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below. Stay tuned for future builds, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.